Mrs. Piggle, the show-off cure. It was a beautiful morning. A bluebird sat on a small branch in a flowery cherry tree, swayed gently back and forth. A crocus pushed his golden head through the tender green grass and blinked in the sudden light. Mrs. Carmody hummed as she first laid slices of bacon in the black iron skillet. "Spring is my favorite time of year," she said to Mandy the dog, who was lying on the kitchen doorway scratching a flea, waiting to trip someone. Mrs. Carmody plugged in the toaster, got out the raspberry jam, and went to the front hall and called upstairs to her husband, "Jordan, breakfast," and to her little boy, "Philip, are you up?" Philip, who was a 10-year-old and still under the covers, called out sleepily, "Practically all dressed, Mom, be right down." Constance, his sister, who was 11, yelled from the bathroom where she was testing how lipstick would look when she was 13. "Philip isn't even up, Mom. He won't be down for about 10 hours. Philip shouted, "Old spy, tattletale." Constance said, "Be quiet, little boy, you bore me." Mrs. Carmody called out louder, "Philip, get out of bed this instant. Connie, wipe off that lipstick. Hurry, Jordan, dear, while the toast is hot." She went back to the kitchen and gave the percolator a shake to hurry it up. Then she walked over and stood by the back door, breathing deeply of a fragrant morning air. Her pleasant reverie was suddenly broken by Mr. Carmody, who came grumpily into the kitchen, tripped over Mandy, and stepped heavily into her water bowl, which was on the floor beside the stove. Mrs. Carmody grabbed the sink sponge and began wiping up the water. Mr. Carmody growled, "Well, that's certainly a nice morning greeting." Mrs. Carmody said, "Oh, Jordan, dear, I'm so sorry. Did you get wet?" "It doesn't matter," said Mr. Carmody mournfully. "Nothing matters anymore." "What do you mean, nothing matters anymore?" asked Mrs. Carmody as she squeezed out the sponge. "Just that," said Mr. Carmody, sadly pouring almost the whole pitcher of cream onto his shredded wheat biscuit. "Are you sick?" asked Mrs. Carmody, peering anxiously at him. "No, I'm not sick. At least I'm not physically sick. Just sick at heart." Mrs. Carmody buttered the toast with the plate until warm, stirred the eggs, lifted the bacon onto the paper towel to drain, checked the color of the coffee, refilled Mandy's water bowl, and then said, "What in the world are you talking about, Jordan? You don't make any sense." "You make sense to me," said Connie, flouncing into the kitchen, "because I feel the same. I'm so ashamed I could die." "What in the world are you talking about?" said Mrs. Carmody. "Are you ready for your eggs, Jordan?" "I suppose so," said Mr. Carmody dolefully. Quickly, Mrs. Carmody took the plates out of the oven, divided the eggs into 4 equal portions, added a dash of paprika, laid on 4 strips of bacon and 2 pieces of toast, carried 2 of the plates to the table, and snapped them down in front of her husband and daughter. "Now," she said, folding her arms, "tell me what this is all about." Connie picked up a piece of bacon and began nibbling at it. "Well, if you really want to know." "I do," said her mother. "Well, the point is that Philip is ruining all of our lives, and you won't face it." "Ruining our lives? Philip," said Mrs. Carmody, "don't be ridiculous." "I'm not ridiculous," said Connie. "Philip is such a disgusting little show-off. I'm ashamed to bring my friends home anymore. What about last night? He disgraced poor Daddy." Mrs. Carmody gazed at her daughter intently for a minute, then said, "Connie, you've got on lipstick again. Go upstairs and wash it off." "Oh, honestly," Connie sighed. "Every single girl in the whole United States of America wears lipstick but me. I'm just a freak with a disgusting little brother." Yes, I know," said her mother. "Go up and wash the lipstick off." When she was sure she couldn't hear Connie's furious footsteps on the stairs, she turned to her husband and said, "Now, Jordan, dear, what is this all about?" Mr. Carmody said, "Meg, Philip is an obnoxious little show-off. Last night was the worst I've ever seen him, and Bob Waltham was my most important client, and frankly, I don't blame him if he never came into this house again." "Oh, Jordan," said Mrs. Carmody, laughing, "Philip was just trying to be entertaining. Do you call putting a whole baked potato in his mouth entertaining? Do you call drinking an entire glass of water without stopping and choking and turning purple and spitting water all over the table entertaining? Do you call looking cross-eyed, touching his chin with his tongue, wiggling his ears, standing on his head, reciting the alphabet backwards and forwards and sideways and upside down entertaining? Well, I don't, and neither did Bob Waltham." "Now, Jordan," said Mrs. Carmody, "you know that Bob Waltham is a stuffy old bore. You've said so yourself, and after all, Philip is only 10. He's just a little boy. You shouldn't be so hard on him." "You mean he shouldn't be so hard on me," said Mr. Carmody, angrily ripping a piece of bread in half. "Meg, something has to be done with the boy. Now, today." Just as Philip came rattling down the stairs and skidded into the breakfast hall. "Hi, Dad. Hi, Mom," he said cheerfully. "Morning," said Mr. Carmody grumpily. "Good morning, Philip, dear," said Mrs. Carmody. Philip sat down and grabbed the sugar bowl and began dumping sugar onto his shredded wheat biscuit. "Not so much sugar, honey," said his mother. Philip added 2 more heaping teaspoons of sugar and then dumped the rest of the pitcher of cream on its cereal. Looking brightly, eagerly at his father, he said, "Hey, Dad, want to watch me put this whole shredded wheat biscuit in my mouth at once?" "I do not," said his father. "Not even if I whistle Dixie with it in my mouth?" "No," roared his father. "Eat your breakfast, dear," said his mother, putting a fresh pitcher of cream on the table. "What if I—" Philip began. "Stop talking," bellowed his father. Connie, who had come downstairs and was standing unnoticed in the doorway, said, "What a repulsive little show-off. My gosh, Mother, can't you see how disgusting he is?" "My gosh, Mother, can't you see how disgusting he is?" mimicked Philip in a high, squeaky voice. "Shoot him, Mother, kill him. Cut him up with the butcher knife, Mommy. He embarrasses me in front of my stupid, ugly, giggling friends." "Now, children," said Mrs. Carmody gently. Mr. Carmody glared around the table and said fiercely, "I want absolute quiet." "My gosh, Dad, what's the matter?" said Philip. "Are you sick or something?" "Yes, I'm sick or something," said Mr. Carmody, savagely jabbing a spoon into the raspberry jam. "I'll get you an aspirin," said Philip, sliding out of the chair. "I'll get 2 aspirins, and I'll carry them in all the way down the stairs on my nose. Watch me. Sit still," shouted Mr. Carmody. "Sit still and eat your breakfast, and don't talk." "Well, okay," said Philip, "but you don't have to be so crabby. Be quiet," yelled his father. Philip gave him a reproachful look, sat down again, and began to eat his shredded wheat biscuit. Mrs. Carmody brought her plate and Philip's from the kitchen and sat down. She looked at the window at the pale pink cherry blossoms and the clear sky and the fat bluebird swaying on the brush, but she no longer felt so happy. She took a sip of coffee, which was lukewarm, and looked around at the breakfast table. Philip was eating busily, but the minute she looked at him, he grinned broadly and whispered, "Hey, Mom, want to watch me balance my cocoa cup on my forehead?" She smiled, shook her head, and motioned for him to be quiet. "Even if it's full of boiling hot cocoa?" She shook her head. "Even if it has a spoon in it?" She shook her head. "What a bunch of crab patches," Philip said. "Quiet," bellowed his father. Philip reached for the jam dish and began sulkily emptying it onto his plate. When breakfast was at last over and everyone had left for school or work, Mrs. Carmody heated up the coffee, poured herself a cup, and sat down at the table and looked at the morning paper. Just as she opened the paper, the corner of her eye, she got the glimpse of something white on the floor under Philip's chair. She reached over and picked up a folded piece of paper. She opened it up, smoothed it out, and read, "Dear Mrs. Carmody, I'm having a little difficulty with Philip. Will you please call at your earliest convenience? Sincerely, Edith Periwinkle." Mrs. Carmody looked at her watch. It was 4 minutes to 9. Perhaps she could get Mrs. Periwinkle before the bell rang. She hurried into the hall and dialed the number of the school. When Mrs. Periwinkle heard Mrs. Carmody's anxious worried voice, she said, "I didn't intend to worry, Mrs. Carmody. It isn't anything serious. It's just Philip has become quite a show-off," said Mrs. Carmody. "Well, yes," said Miss Periwinkle, "because that is the right word. I also must admit that he is very entertaining, and his little schoolmates think he is very funny and laugh at everything he does. Unfortunately, he no longer confides his antics to recess in the schoolyard, so I have to take steps, which is why I wrote the note." "Well," Mrs. Carmody said, "I should have seen it coming, because we are having our problems with him at home, too. Have you any suggestions?" "Yes, I have," said Miss Periwinkle. "I think you should call Mrs. Piggle. You've heard of her, haven't you?" "I've heard the name," said Mrs. Carmody. "Is she some sort of doctor?" "Oh, my, no," said Miss Periwinkle. "She's just a very nice little woman who loves and understands children, and has a very magic way of curing their bad habits. Her telephone is Vin Maple I 2345. "Just a minute when I get a pencil," said Philip's mother. Of course she couldn't find a pencil, but she did finally find a broken green crayon, at which she wrote down Mrs. Periwinkle's telephone number on the back of the gas bill. Mrs. Carmody's hand was shaking as she dialed the number, but Mrs. Piggle had such a warm, friendly voice that Mrs. Carmody got right over her nervousness and told her all about Philip. Mrs. Pigwinkle laughed and said, "Isn't it a shame that children can't be all evened up? I mean, some are show-offs, and some are shy, and some are quiet. Some are noisy, and some laugh too much, and some cry too much. Oh, I could go on, but loud or quiet, shy or show-offy, timid or boisterous, children are wonderful, and I love them all." "So do I," said Philip's mother. "And actually, Mrs. Piggle, Philip showing off doesn't bother me, but his daddy says he is obnoxious, and his sister Connie says he is disgusting, and this morning his teacher, Miss Periwinkle, told me that he's getting out of hand." Well, said Mrs. Piggle, if his only older sister were complaining about Philip, I'd be inclined to let time work things out. But as long as Philip is annoying his daddy and Miss Periwinkle, who is one of the best fifth-grade teachers in this country, we'd better take steps. Take steps? Quavered Philip's mother. What do you mean by steps? Oh, it's very simple, said Mrs. Piggle. Have Philip come down after school, and I'll give him a bottle of show-off powder. For the next few days, sprinkle a little on him before meals, especially when you're having company, and just before he leaves for school in the morning. I'm sure you won't have any more trouble. But what is this show-off powder? Will it hurt Philip? Said Mrs. Carmody fearfully. Show-off powder is guaranteed to be harmless, said Mrs. Piggle, but it will stop showing off. And you see, it makes the show-off invisible. Invisible, wailed Philip's mother. You mean I won't be able to see my own little boy? Not when he's showing off, said Mrs. Piggle matter-of-factly. Nobody will be able to see him. But when he stops showing off and is normal, he'll come back into focus. Are you sure? Said Philip's mother. Oh my, yes, said Mrs. Piggle. Now don't worry about it. Just send Philip up after school. I know that everything is going to be fine. Goodbye, and don't worry. But Mrs. Carmody did worry. She worried as she washed the breakfast dishes and tidied up the house. She worried as she made out the grocery list and sorted the laundry. But she worried the most when she was straightening up Philip's room. What if this powder makes Philip disappear and something goes wrong and he won't come back? She sobbed as she took 2 apple cores, 3 funny books, a slingshot, and an empty box of Smith Brothers cough drops out from under Philip's pillow. Philip's room was so messy, and she was in there such a long time, picking up and imagining terrible things, that she finally decided not to send for the magic show-off powder. The old powder was far too dangerous to use on a sensitive, intelligent little boy like Philip. And anyways, Philip's showing off was really clever, and maybe one day he'd be on the stage. And the front door crashed open. A loud voice yelled, "Mom, hey Mom, where are you?" And Philip was home from school. Mrs. Carmody rushed downstairs, and sure enough, there was Philip, very much alive and visible, sitting at the kitchen table, wolfing down gingerbread with milk. His back was towards his mother, but she could see that one sleeve was ripped out of the sweater. "Philip," his mother said, "what in the world happened to your sweater?" "Fell off my bike," Philip said, through a mouthful of gingerbread. "Oh, sweetheart." His mother said, running to him, "Did you hurt yourself?" "Oh, not much," Philip said. "Kind of tore my pants, though, and ripped one of my new school shoes. See?" He held out his leg and showed his mother a pant leg ripped jaggedly at the knee. He held out the other and showed her his brown Oxford with a large tear of the instep. He also had a cut over his eye, a skinned place on his nose, and blood on his chin. "Oh, Philip," his mother said, "you might have been killed. Were you hit by a car?" "Oh, Philip said, "did some big boy push you?" "Gosh, no," Philip said. "Well, then what happened?" his mother asked. "Oh, nothing." Philip drained his glass of milk. "Can I have another piece of gingerbread, Mom?" "Certainly," said his mother, "but first I want to know about the accident with your bicycle." "Well, if you really want to know, I was sitting in the basket of my bike riding down Mission Hill, backwards singing Polly Wolly Doodle, and I saw the bread truck coming, and I guess I didn't turn soon enough, and I ran into the Wallace Irons fence. And I got my shoe on the pedal and my pant on the picket. I had my eye on the handlebars, and I don't know what else happened, but boy, you should have heard the kids and that old breadman laugh." "No doubt," said his mother dryly. "Now you go upstairs and change your trousers and your shoes. Bring me your trousers to mend. Take the torn shoe down to Mr. Ritsoa and ask him if he can patch it. And on your way home, stop at Mrs. Pigglewiggle's. She has something for me. Do you know where Mrs. Pigglewiggle lives?" "Sure I do," said Philip. "We play down there all the time. What's she got for you?" "Never you mind," said his mother. "Just don't forget to stop by there. Now scoot." And that's where we'll stop for today. We'll begin this again.